Kirsten, and not taking your time, Kirsten, from what you have to present here. I believe that you also feel the same way. This morning, I try to do every morning before coming to the Spirit Center, try to think what am I going to the Spirit Center for, right? Or what's the message that we will receive? And every time when I have the opportunity to come in contact with these messages that that Kirsten is bringing in this book, Jesus in Our Day, it's an opportunity that we have to come closer to Jesus. We can always think about what the Jesus that we learn from the different churches, from the different ideals, right, of life. But let us think about someone who sacrificed, who brought a lot of teachings for us, that for these past 2,000 years we have been contemplating and learning from and striving to become a better individual with this message. So when we have this opportunity, I would like to ask, if anything, let's embrace it. Let's do the best to connect with the message, with Kirsten, with one another, that we can also multiply on our day in and day out struggles, right, that we all have. So it's a blast to be here. I'm very happy, and I'm quite sure that you also are happy to be here. And we pass the message to listen a little bit more about this master that we all want to hear about, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. Good evening, everyone. So today, much like the other series of talks we've given on this book, we will be keeping the actual text on the screen. I didn't leave anything out of the particular chapter. So word by word, we're going to be digesting from Joanna DeAngelis and her topic of Jesus and honor. But before we begin today, I just wanted to sort of connect with the audience a little bit more and have us connect together and connect with the Creator and to connect with Christ and this Christ-like consciousness. So let's talk a little bit about who is Jesus. This is not a rhetorical question. I am asking you, who is Jesus? Any courageous people to want to answer that? Yeah, let's go.
Well, we can see him as a very high spirit, honored to serve God. He was one of the chosen to come to teach us, to be with us. As a man, I think he had, at that time, the most, high qualities, all qualities, and the correct words, and mainly behaving actions to pass the message of kindness with some kind of, I won't say toughness, but with determination to last for at least 2,000 years or more. So it was something amazing as model and guide for us.
Let me rephrase my question a little bit. Who is Jesus to you? Dun, 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 dun.
Our model to follow.
Our model to follow, absolutely. No one else? Paula, what is Jesus to you? Or who is Jesus to you?
He's an awakened heart. I still see the statue I grew up with in my Catholic elementary school of him with this heart that had a sword in it. So I just associate him with the unconditional love that's always there.
Leo?
I was thinking about this week. I'm actually involved with something in school with religion, and one of the things that I crossed my mind this week was this relationship that Jesus helped us connect or reconnect with God in a different way. Being the Father, but that close Father that is not the Creator, the scary Creator. So to rephrase what I'm trying to say is, let's say an older brother who knows a lot more that helped me understand God in a different way.
beautifully said. So, shall I take the silence of everybody else as they're not sure who Jesus is or what he is to you? Or are we just not that courageous, right? Not everyone likes to grab the microphone and talk. That's okay. Understood. But it's important for us to contemplate who or what Jesus means to us. It's extremely important. Does everybody understand that? Another question. Why is it important? I told you today we're going to be interacting with one another. I want us to think. I want us to process, because it'd be easy for me just to read the text and give you my viewpoint, but I want to get the cogwheels rolling in your head, and I want to get you thinking. Why is it important to know who Jesus, who he was, who he is, what he stands for? Why is that important? There are no wrong answers. No one? Okay, Maria.
To me, he's somebody I can go to at any moment of the day, whenever I need something, or even if I'm happy about something, I say thank you. So it's actually someone that I rely on for so much.
Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? Why is Jesus important to know? Teenagers. Why is it important to know who he is, what he's done for us, his message? There are no wrong answers. What's popping into your head? Silence? Okay. All right. That's okay. I hope that you're taking these quiet moments to reflect and think about it, because it's important. It is important for us to connect with Christ, with our model and guide, because he came here for a purpose. As our friends have shared here today, he is like an older brother. He was perfect. He did everything correctly and with everything with a purpose. So throughout this book, Joanna is trying to help us connect more with Christ and everyday life in our days, and how he's relevant for today. I have another question. Oh gosh. What is the definition of honor, or to honor? To praise, okay? Respect, okay? To pay back with good deeds, okay? When you honor someone, like you honor someone's memory, or you're honoring your parents, or you act honorably, how are we defining that? If I want to live an honorable life, what does that mean? By obey and agree with Christ's teachings, okay? Paula?
I just think ethical and moral.
Ethical and moral. Anyone else can think about what honor means to them? To honor, to be honorable, to honor your parents. So no one here honors their parents. I'm taking that as you don't know, you haven't. Okay. We'll learn together today what Joanna and Spiritism has to say about honoring and living an honorable life with Christ-like teachings, or Christ consciousness. She starts out this chapter diving into Jesus, and she gives us reminders that Jesus' psychic structure was the model of perfect oneness with the task he came to fulfill. Answer number 1, why it's important to know him. Because he was a perfect model of oneness for us. He grasped the fundamental laws of life that guided men and women, using words and actions to set a sure course for physio-psychological balance. Number 2 reason why it's important to know him. He grasped the fundamental laws of life that guided men and women. Don't we all need to become more familiar with the fundamental laws of life so they can guide us? And who are we following day in and day out? Because we are all creatures of habit, and we are all influenced by what's around us and what we're watching, what we're listening to, the podcast, the music, our friends. Who are we being influenced by? Although he was the personification of the truth, he did not overwhelm others with his natural superiority, nor did he impose on their individuality, which became, if anything, more independent. This is a vital piece of information about Jesus' ministry. He never forced anyone to believe as he did. And he never imposed upon anyone's conscience. He never made anyone feel bad and said, oh, well, you're going to go to this dark place, or you're going to go here, or you're going to suffer in hell, or, if you don't follow me, you're a bad person. He never imposed. And these are the behaviors that we should have. As spiritists, as Christians, we should never impose our beliefs on anybody, but just live the teachings. Those who grew fond of him found peace. Consequently, they freely chose to follow him. He knew how to awaken the individual's latent abilities and channel them for wholesome purposes, bringing happiness and completeness. Now, Christ was perfect, so he could look at you, look in your soul, and see what you needed and bring it out of you. Now, we don't exactly have that talent. No, that's fine. That's okay. But we can look at our brother or sister or their, friend, neighbor, and try to think about the good that they have within them. Because they say, and we learn through the Spiritist literature, that even the most perverse human being has even a little bit of good inside them that's just ready to sprout. So there's good in everyone, however perverse they may be. Because even Jesus was able to lead the most perverse of beings back to the light. These are reasons why we need to get to know who he is, what he stood for, what he talked about, what he taught to everyone, for us to model our behavior and our decisions as he did. And if you think about Christ, not the Jesus that in modern religion or within the churches, but Christ, when you begin to study him, you learn that he is so open to love all people from all backgrounds, independent of who they are, what religion they are. It didn't matter. He knew that we were all sons and daughters of God. And Joanna ends with, the parables that he told, containing his living lessons, are still apropos for today's problems, because their coherent meaning and guidance may be applied without any conflict of time, place, or person. What does that mean? The parables that he told 2,000 years ago are still applicable for us today. We are not that different. In some ways, we are not that different from people back in 2,000 years ago. Our desires to get married, have children, get ahead in your job, or get a job, studying, reading, whatever it is. We are not so far off from those from the past. And Joanna will talk a little bit about that as we go on. Modern people more or less continue to have the same aspirations and necessities as their ancestors, except for a few achievements over time. So we are the same people from before. We have the same kind of aspirations and necessities. That's why Jesus' parables are still applicable until today. For that reason, they still face needs and insecurities that perturb their emotional structure. To attain inner emancipation, inner freedom, They need the light of knowledge and courage in order to honor themselves by decisively pursuing their objectives. And we're going to talk about this because in order for us to decisively pursue our objectives, meaning our goals, we have to set them. What's important to you? What are you reaching for? What are you working towards? And are we using the light of knowledge and courage in order to honor ourselves and live honorably? Something we're going to talk about. Knowing what one wants out of life and how to go about it, such as the birthing process of personal maturity, breaking with one's own atavistic roots carried over from one's spiritual past. This simply just means our past tendencies, all the things that I think the phrase is the old man inside of me, or the I can't think of the other word for it, but we bring each lifetime the same habits and behaviors, unless we fix them. If they're bad behaviors, we bring them with us. So knowing what we want out of life will begin the birthing process for us to become more mature. Because if we're just living day to day, I'm getting up in the morning, I'm doing my makeup, I'm going to school, I'm putting on the radio, I'm talking to my friends, I'm doing this. If it just has no meaning, you have no objective in life, not really working or setting a goal towards anything. And Joanna's enlightening us by telling us that we need to have goals and objectives in our lives, which we'll talk about here in a minute. For this effort, honor becomes an unparalleled inner guide that propels one forward without delay. So remember we talked about what is honor? What does it mean to honor? Because Joanna alerts us that honor becomes an unparalleled inner guide. So if we don't know what the word honor means, we're going to know what it means by the end of tonight or in a few minutes, because it's so important. For those who might not be able to see the bottom line here, what it says, I'll read it again. For this effort, honor becomes an unparalleled inner guide that propels one forward without delay. So honor gives me guidance to move forward in life. So I need to know and understand what that word means. To me, under the light of Spiritism, what the Webster's Dictionary also has to say about it as well. It's important for us to connect with these ideas. That's why in the beginning I asked, who is Jesus to you? What does honor mean to you? For us to connect with this message. Because it's all about inner emancipation. Who doesn't want to feel free of their burdens, of their guilt, whether conscious or not, feeling bad for things we've done in the past, or just having feelings that are just not good? You just want to feel free, you want to feel light. Is there anyone in this room who does not want to feel that? Just curious, wanted to poll the audience. So everybody wants to feel free, wants to feel emancipated from a heavy load perhaps you've brought from a past life. Is that, yeah? Can we say yes? Most of us? Yeah? All right. She's giving us the guidance for it. She goes back to Jesus and says, when Jesus broke with the constraining ties to his family, albeit without neglecting his moral and social commitments to them, he demonstrated the greatness of his courage resulting from his personal honor. When his family, unaware of his ministry and doubtful of his mission, came looking for him, hoping to interrupt his work of laying the foundation for the good news in the people's hearts, someone said to him, "Your mother and brothers are here asking for you." So that there's that famous passage. A lot of people utilize this particular passage in the Bible when Jesus talked about honoring thy father and thy mother, and people sometimes think, well, Jesus wasn't honoring his family, because when they came to the synagogue looking for Jesus, wanting to, as Joanna says, interrupt his work, he asked the question, who is my mother? Who are my brothers? He took that opportunity for us to think deeper. And that's what we're trying to do here tonight, to get us to think a little bit more deeper into our understanding of Christ consciousness, how to live our life in an honorable way, and connecting those two things together. The time had come for him to make an unwavering yet honorable decision, allowing him to ask calmly, who is my father, my mother, my brothers, except those who do God's will? So Jesus did not dishonor his family here. He simply was utilizing this as an opportunity for us to think deeper into blood ties and spiritual ties and what that means for us. Everyone's astonishment did not perturb him. He carried on as if nothing happened. And this was often the Christ's attitude towards all people or all things in life in his life that try to perturb him. He carried on. He kept moving. He kept spreading the word despite what was happening. Joanna starts by defining for us in a very simple sentence. Honor is the courage to choose what is best. Let's let that sink in for a second. I really want that to sink into our minds. You can read it again on the screen. Honor is the courage. Now what does it mean to have courage? That's strength to choose what is best. In the heat of the moment, or when you're stuck in a lot of emotions and situations, sometimes doing the right thing doesn't always feel good. And sometimes doing the wrong thing feels good because of old behaviors and beliefs that we have in our mind. Most of our issues in society revolve around relationships. And how many times can we note or think of in a relationship, whether it's a friend, a coworker, colleague, a spouse, partner, whatever, have we had not had the courage to choose what is best? We did what was easiest. We got angry. We yelled. We screamed. How many times do we take the higher road? That's what she's talking about. The courage to choose what is best. That is living an honorable life. Reflect for a second in your mind and think about whether it's your high school, your friend group, your work. Are we making choices that we feel that we're living honorably? Now, this isn't for us to feel bad about ourselves and feel like we're terrible people. No, that's not what Joanna wants. She just wants us to reflect more, to be self-aware. She goes on to say, hesitating between those who wanted to hold him back and those who needed his presence and lessons will mean the lamentable failure of his objectives. She's referring to Jesus here. There was no disrespect toward his family members who, presumptuous, fearful, and not having previously consulted him, disrespected his choice as an independent man that had come on a mission whose end he never denied, humiliation, the cross, and death. His honor led him to carry on, even as he struggled against every hostile factor. He had come to break down barriers, to wrest the modeled sculpture of the complete human being from the cold marble of utilitarian and Slovocratic society. And I just broke down what those two things meant in case you might not know what that is. Utilitarian is just living practically, and Slovocratic was a term that they used relating to slave owners and those who advocated for slavery. So he came to break down those ideas, and not just the Slovocratic in the way like that we're thinking in terms of when the African Americans were put into slavery, the Egyptians and the Jewish. But there are other types of slavery that happens during obsessions, when we are slave to our imperfect desires, We are a slave to things that are not good for us. Jesus came to break down all those things for us. To show us the sculpture of the human being. Honor was his chisel, and duty was his hammer. Nothing could imprison him within the limits of convention, childish fears, or immature sentiments. Honor was his chisel, and duty was his hammer. So if we can picture ourselves as a work of art, like a sculpture, and you having a chisel in your hand and a hammer, and just chiseling down and etching out and creating for yourself the life that you want, the person that you want to be. And let's ask ourselves, what does it mean to me when I live within the limits of convention, childish fears, or immature sentiments? What does that mean to you, to live within the limits of convention? What society has posed as normal for us, or what family has? Paula or Yaska?
Following the limits of convention reminds me of hearing Greta Thunberg, the Swedish teenager, speak on the climate this week on public TV. And she said, first of all, her Asperger's was a blessing because it enabled her to see and think differently than most people. And then she wondered why none of the adults were really earnestly asking for climate change and environmental justice. So she's one who was willing to break free of the limits of convention as a very young person.
Great example, thank you. Yaska?
Now, I think we have to be careful because we can be hijacked by these little rules inside family, society, why you living us, and try to see others. So we don't know what kind of also obsessors are manipulate people in our environment in order to our job to be jeopardized. So we have to be careful and be certain what is our mission, what is correct to do as a human being with all this knowledge. It's not only our, at least blood type family, it's too little. I think it's too little.
Absolutely. And what would we qualify as childish fears? What's a childish fear? Does anyone have an example of that? People that are really needy behavior. Anyone else have any idea what a fear that is childish, immature? Guilt? Paula?
What we call impulsivity, acting before thinking.
Impulsivity? Yes. What's that? Playing victim? Childish fears. So what kind of fears do we have in the world? To be left behind? Rejected? I'm not good enough. That person's better than me. I'm gonna die. I can't do that. I'm not smart enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm too old. I don't speak the language. This is not my country. What's that? That's a big spider. Yeah. Or immature sentiments. Now, we can answer these for ourselves. We're not trying to, again, I don't believe Joanna's trying to make anyone feel bad. I don't think she wants to throw stones at anybody. I think she just wants us to observe our own selves and what we define things as. It's important that we be conscious of the way we define things and how we view things. Because what are immature sentiments? Egotistical, okay? What else is an immature sentiment? I'm gonna start playing the Jeopardy music. Dun, 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 dun. Someone who's a crybaby? Okay. What's that? What is it? Mimicry? No. Oh, whining? Oh, okay. Whining. Victimization. Jealousy. Thank you. That's a very good one, Miss Teenager. Thank you. Jealousy. And that might seem perhaps like we're judging. We're not judging. Jealousy is an immature sentiment. When we learn to love, we don't feel jealousy. Good things. Good feedback, you guys. Important for us to know Christ so we can work to get out of these limits of convention, these childish fears and immature sentiments. Using honor and duty. That's how we're going to begin to break down these enslaving things. 20 centuries later, he is still the same sculptor of souls, shaping the marble of lives in order to set them free. So he is just as pertinent and relevant. His teachings are just as real and good, and he's still doing the same work that he has been doing when he was on planet Earth, helping to shape people, helping for them to be better. So this is not the end. This is not my last slide. I know usually we do take-home thoughts at the end. I know that. But we actually have a meditation, sort of a activity for us to do. I want us to reflect on some of Joanna's questioning, because that's what's important about Spiritism. It's not just that, oh, I'm reading the books, I'm going to the center, I must be, doing something right. That's great that you're coming to the center or going to your synagogue, church, whatever. But Joanna, time and time again, has said, if we're not taking these words into our hearts and putting them in action, what are we doing? It's like going to medical school and then going to practice medicine and not utilizing the knowledge that you have. What are you doing? It's not meant to be in a judgmental way, but what are we doing with our lives? What objectives? What's the point? What's my purpose? Why am I here? It's so easy to forget that question. Why am I here? What's my purpose here? Why am I in this country? Why am I in this city? Why am I living in this neighborhood? Why am I living next door to this person? Asking why is a great way to get to know your own self and question things around you. It's becoming more awake and more aware. But let's see what Joanna has to say in terms of some take-home thoughts for today. Your honor should be molded on his. So how we live, remember, honor is to choose what is best. So we should mold how we honor others and ourselves the way that Christ did, with Christ consciousness, choosing what is best for our lives, not what is easiest or closest to us, but choosing what is best for us. Your decision for happiness, breaking with complacency and tradition, is your driving force. We've talked about this before, that one of the hardest things to overcome in life, especially when you're under some form of obsession or disturbancy, spiritual, mental, what have you, the most difficult thing is to get that person to want to make the decision to be happy. Because oftentimes we carry guilt from previous lifetimes, or perhaps this lifetime. But we carry this guilt that imprisons us, that holds us back from being happy. But if we make this decision for happiness, we break with complacency, which is just doing the same thing again and again, or just not wanting to get out of your comfort zone, if you break with that and with tradition, that can become your driving force. Now, traditions are not bad. But sometimes we need to break tradition for us to move forward in our lives, to reevaluate, rethink how we're living our lives. She says, go within and scrutinize your conscience, your inner guide, in order to find out what you really want, what is best for you, and how to get it. So how many of us, you don't have to raise your hand if you don't want to, scrutinize your conscience? Do we know what to scrutinize means? Anybody? To teach? Ditch? Oh, examine? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Analyze. Dig deep. How many of us have ever done that with our own consciousness? Anyone? Paula says yes, she has. Have we ever looked at ourselves and scrutinized ourselves and just said, man, why did I do that? That wasn't a great decision. If you've never had that phrase run through your mind, we need to reevaluate our lives. Because we need to take this opportunity to, this life that God has given us, to scrutinize our conscience, which is our inner guide, it's our inner compass, to find out what we really want out of life. How do we set goals? So we have some teenagers here. I mean, how are you setting your goals for your lives? You're thinking about college, you're thinking about, maybe not everyone's thinking about college, perhaps college, or what you want to be when you're older. How are you all choosing those goals? Are you choosing it based off of what you read about, what your friends are talking about? Or is it just something that you feel so inclined and passionate about? I'll give you an example. Since the age of, as early as I can remember, since the age of 3 or 4, I always wanted to be a nurse. That has always been in my mind. It was a goal I always wanted since I was very little. There was never any doubt. It was unwavering, and that I just always knew. So I knew that was what I really wanted to do with my professional life, because I also wanted to be someone that helped people. So it kind of worked both for me professionally and on a spiritual level. And it was what was best for me. But how are any of us making those decisions? And it doesn't matter how old we are. Age is just a number, because our souls are like 1,000,000 years old. So age is just a number for the physical body. It doesn't really have a whole lot of relevance. So this is not a rhetorical question. How are we finding out what we really want, what is best for us, and how to get it? How are we setting goals for ourselves? Are we going to our friends and asking what they're doing? Are we reading a spiritual book and trying to get what we really want? Connecting that with Christ consciousness, connecting that with the morals and the ethical beliefs that Christ lived, and living honorably. If we don't feel that shift, we need to re-examine ourselves. And we're not saying that, oh, you're a bad person if you haven't felt it. You're doing something wrong. No. We're human beings. We're living our lives. We can get easily distracted for long periods of time, for years on end. But here we have this free resource to help us in life. People pay thousands of dollars over the years for therapists, medications, going to retreats and things like that. But here we have the Spiritist teachings bringing to us, telling us how we can easily connect with this higher power, with this Christ, Jesus, and trying to live honorably as he lived. The awareness of duty will manifest in the honor of following standards of respect for everyone and everything in complete freedom under Jesus' leadership. I'll read that again. The awareness of duty will manifest in the honor of following standards of respect for everyone and everything in complete freedom under Jesus' leadership. We will inevitably change who we are, how we're leading our lives when we follow Christ. It's inevitable. It will happen when we truly live that Christ-like consciousness. So we're going to do a little meditation. And let me see how much time we have here. Let me see. I'm just trying to debate if we want to turn the lights out, but I don't think we necessarily need to, unless you guys wanted to put the music on or. Yeah, you can cut the light. That's fine. Okay. Let us reflect together. Here is the reminder, and this is sort of the takeaway, at least one of the takeaways from today, I hope that you can take home with you and meditate further about, is the following. And this is a text that I brought earlier in the presentation. Go within and scrutinize your conscience, your inner guide, in order to find out what you really want, what is best for you, and how to get it. So we're going to do a silent activity, and we're going to take a moment to reflect about the following questions. What do you really want out of life? Think about that for a second. If I called on you right now and asked you, what do you really want out of life? Independent of your age or where you're at, what you've accomplished or not, what do you want out of life? Ask yourself that question. What do I want out of life? I want to get a degree. I want to find a partner. I want to be a better person. I want to find a great house. It's important for us to reflect what it is we're working towards and to readjust if needed for higher purposes. Can we all picture in our mind what you really want out of life? Can each one of us picture that in our mind? No? Yes? What is best for you? What are the best things for you that work for you in your life? When we think about what we really want out of life, is that what's best for us? It's a call for us to reevaluate our desires, goals, objectives. Think about what you really want out of life and question your conscience, which Joanna reminds us is our inner guide. So we don't really need anyone else to tell us. We have that inner guide within us to let us know what is best for us. Because deep down, we know that answer. Even if it's deep, 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 deep down, we have that answer. And we know what is best for us or not. Third question. How can you go about getting it? So if you reflect on what you want out of life, what is best for you, but how can you go about getting it? This brings us back time and time again when Joanna reminds us how important it is for us to set goals for our life. Daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. It's important to know what they are for us. I ask this question a lot when we're interviewing for positions at my job, I often will ask the interviewee, what are your long and short-term goals? And it tends to be that one question that people spend the most time having to really think about. Which makes me think maybe we're not setting goals for ourselves. Maybe we don't even know what they are. But if we can reflect right now, here and now, what do you really want out of life? What is best for you? And how can you go about getting it? Honor plays a big part in this. For us to live honorably with Christ consciousness, following Jesus' teachings, matching that with these question and answers that we are asking ourselves. It's important for us to meditate on this. Think about it. Scrutinize your inner world, your inner self, and let it be your guide. Do a weekly review of what your goals are and if your conscience is in agreement with it. Does anyone here keep a journal, diary, something to that effect? I guess that's a thing of years ago. Maybe when I was growing up, it was a big thing to have a diary. It's really good to have a moment in your day where you're jotting down your thoughts or you're reflecting about them and thinking about reviewing your goals. And if your inner guide is in agreement with it. These are things for us to meditate about that Joanna is telling us. It's not me. It's not Kirsten. I'm not telling you this. This is Joanna, the higher spirit, the psychologist of the soul, for us to do this inner reflection. So let us now close our eyes. We're going to do another short visualization and lead us into our passes. I'm going to ask them to play the music in the back as well, just to lead us through this meditation. In this meditation, you can envision yourself in this particular place where you see on the screen, by a beach, near the seashore, on the sand, or on a mountaintop, wherever you feel most comfortable, as long as it's someplace in nature where you're connecting with that healing energy from nature that the Creator has provided to us. Find yourself in a place in nature where you feel most calm, most at peace. Picture that now in your mind. Put it on the screen of your mind. Surround sound it. 3D it. Allow yourself to smell all the aromas around you in this place. Whether it's fresh flowers, or the smell of the ocean, or the grasslands. Be present in this moment with nature. And as you sit there, enjoying the scenery, the calmness, you open your eyes and you see someone walking towards you. It's a brother, it's a friend, but you can't make out quite who it is yet. But you can feel the vibration of love, hope, joy, total acceptance, understanding, compassion. And before we know it, He is before us. and He is Jesus. In whatever form we see Him as, His crystalline eyes that are able to reach into our soul, to reassure us, to bring us peace,